Hello everyone, welcome to a very special Popcorn PD session. It is the Educator Epic and we are joined by two very special Wakelet ambassadors to share with you how they are using Wakelet to transform their teaching and how you can too. But before we jump in, just to let you know that the chat will be going on throughout, so please share anything, all your ideas in the chat, ask any questions, we'll be there to answer any questions that you have and share all your ideas. It's great to see lots of you already jumping on from Malaysia, Georgia there as well, so it's so wonderful to see. We will also be sharing out a certificate link towards the end of the session, so you'll be able to grab that link so you can get your certificate and your ticket stub so you can share that out with the world after the session. So I'm going to bring our two wonderful speakers on, Wendy and Brandy. Hi both, how are you?
Hello.
Hi.
Great to see you both. And without further ado, I'm going to hand you over the stage and shout action.
All right.
Well, hello there, everyone. So Brandy and I are coming to you from different parts of the United States, and we're going to take a minute here and give you a little background about ourselves. Take it away, Brandy.
Hi, everyone. I am Brandy Reams, and I am from Eastern North Carolina, this small place called Rocky Mount. So I am here with you today to help explain to you how I use Wakelet in my classroom. I teach lower education. My focus has been kindergarten for the last 6 years. And believe it or not, it is the easiest thing in the world to use it with this age group of students. And I'm going to show you how you can use it with your students too.
And I am from the sunny state of Florida. I'm the opposite end of this spectrum. I teach the bigs instead of the littles. I teach 9th grade reading, and I'm going to show you some really cool ways that Wakelet can transform your teaching and your students' learning. And so we are here to give you a peek behind the curtain to see what it looks like for educators to use this in their classroom. So, Brandy, if you want to go ahead and get us started.
All right. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is, oh, there we go. Now I can see it. The first thing that we're going to take a look at here is a collection that I made, and we're going to kind of do this in the reverse order. So we're kind of doing how we're transforming the learning aspect before we do the teaching. We all know that we usually do the teaching first, and then we show the learning. But we're going to go ahead and show the learning. So this first collection is I Can Make 100 by Creating Groups of 10. So after I taught a lesson on how we can make groups of 10 to get to 100 using real world objects, I sent my students out to actually do this for themselves. So this was during the pandemic. So they were at home and able to use the resources that they had there. So that just shows the versatility of this tool. It doesn't have to be just in the classroom. It can be done anywhere. So we can go ahead and take a look inside that collection.
Are you seeing the collection, Brandy?
I am not.
Okay, give me a second. I think it's still sharing that screen. Just a minute. I'm going to go back and reshare so that it clicks on my tabs that I want.
No worries.
Thank you for your patience as we're learning this new tool. Got it. All right, now let's see. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. It is showing the collections. Let's see.
Okay. Now, let me check here. Now is it over here?
Yeah, now it's changing over. Perfect.
Okay, here we go.
So this is a collaborative collection that I actually sent home with my students. So once they completed their lesson with me in class, they went around their house, found different things that they could make groups of 10 to reach 100 with. I like this because they're able to show their creativity. This is kind of bare minimum for them. They have to have a lot of parent help at this stage, but they're still getting exposure to it. So you can kind of just see their personalities through this, which is something that I really love.
And I love the choice, and even though they're not speaking, it does give them a voice to show who they are by their collections that they've created here.
Absolutely. So the next one is just an ELA activity that we did. So we did a lesson on apple writing. We got to taste apples and the whole 9 yards. So through Wakelet, I was able to share their rubric, and then they uploaded writing samples of their own. So this is something that I kept for their portfolio, able to share with parents and administrators. I mean, how often do administrators want to see your work? They want to see what it is that your students are doing. We tell them all the time, but they want to know where it is. So this is a good way to kind of house an item for your portfolio to be able to share with different stakeholders.
And I love your apple juice drinker over here.
I do too. She was very into this activity.
And I love that this makes like an instant portfolio for you to be able to share, like you said, with your parents, with your administrators, and for the kids themselves to be able to see.
Absolutely. And so the last one from the learning aspect, they're showing proof that they have learned the content that I have taught them, is a non-standard measurement activity. And again, this was also done during the pandemic. We went and learned about all different types of measurement, standard and non-standard measurement, and they were tasked with finding something, anything to measure. And then I gave them a set of guidelines. You know, the materials had to be the same size. They had to be pressed right up against each other. They couldn't be spaced out. So using everything that I taught them, they went and found things to measure themselves. And you can see they did a wonderful job of following all of the different rules for measuring. This is one of my favorites. She measured her couch with herself. Just their creativity and the things that they found to measure. And then you'll see I had some in the classroom. This was kind of a hybrid learning approach. So this was really great because the kids in the classroom got to see what the kids at home were doing and vice versa.
I love the versatility of this and how you use these different activities with their choices, and we're able to put them in a simple collection for the kids to access. I love it.
And if I had been thinking right at the time, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, there's a lot going on and a lot to think about. But if I had been thinking clearly, you know, looking back now, I would have left little Flipgrid videos to respond to them, to tell them what I liked about their projects that they did. You know, students love getting feedback, and what fun is it to see your teacher leave a video talking directly to you? So, you know, that's something that I would definitely do different next time.
So if you're not sure what Brandy means, inside of these collections, right underneath them, she would be able to actually add right below a Flipgrid video telling them feedback about what she liked and the things that she saw with their project. And it would literally be added right in here, right underneath each one of their pictures. And so they wouldn't have to go out to anything else to see it. It would all be housed right there in that collection.
Now,
all right,
switching over to secondary.
So I'm going to show you a little bit of how we use Wakelet within the secondary classroom. As I teach reading, we just recently did a book called Long Way Down, and they had a character scrapbook that they had to complete for one of the main characters. And we're going to take a little peek into what my students have done. Now, since my kids are older, they have the ability to set up their own Wakelet account themselves and create collections within that. And once they've created a collection, then they'll share that link with me. And actually, when they first set it up, they share the link one time. And then as they add things, they just continue to add them. And I see the most current things. So one of our main characters was Will. And so this was one of my students' scrapbooks that they created. the picture had to represent the character. The background had to represent the setting. They had certain parameters that they had to follow. They had to have a picture that showed the internal conflict. They had to have a picture that shared either something about the family or the friends from the book. And a lot of the family and friends had passed away in the story. They had to create a graphic using Adobe Creative Cloud that had 2 quotes from the book that they felt represented their character. They also had to do a Flipgrid video. And this is my student right here doing a Flipgrid video right within her collection. She didn't have to go anywhere. She didn't have to do anything. She just did the video right here. The book itself ends on a cliffhanger. And so their video had to talk about what they thought happened after the book ended based on the evidence from what they've already read. So they had to have book evidence and they had to explain their ending from there. In the Wakelet collections, they can also bring in YouTube videos. So what they had to do for this was they had to find a song that they thought represented their character's life. And then once they brought that video in, they had to change the picture of the video to represent the character or something from the book. And then they had to explain, how does that song represent that character? How does it relate to that character? How does it connect to them? And explain using evidence from the book and lyrics from the song. So it got them into an analyzing of the text and of the song. And then they had to write a letter to themselves from the main character. And you can see they've added a PDF here. And this is to them from their character. And it gives a summary of the book from the character's point of view. So that's one of the examples of the scrapbook. Just to show you the same character, but you'll notice that even though it's the same character they did, the scrapbook itself is entirely different. The songs are different. The pictures are different. And so they were able to apply what they thought they got out of the book from that character's point of view. Again, we've got our pictures. They have their graphic. This is her video. This is her song, and then her letter. So even though it's the same exact character, she had different ways that it was set up. And we have a couple other ones, the character of Buck and the character of Uncle Mark. So that just gives you a few ideas of one way that my students have used this. Now, last year, when we were in the middle of our hybrid learning, all of our schools gave the technology out to students that were at their house. So the students that were at their house had all the technology, which meant in our classrooms, we had nothing. We had a teacher laptop and our projector, and that was pretty much it. And so my students did something sort of similar last year with a different book called Unwind. These collections were done entirely on their cell phones. And I know a lot of software says, you know, oh, their mobile works just as well as their online platform. But let me tell you, it is true. Wakelet's mobile application is unbelievable. So I'm just going to kind of show you real quickly one of my students. Now, keep in mind, this was done entirely on their phone. They did everything from their PDF on their phone. So if I open it here, and it was just as easy for them to do on their phones as it was for them to do on a laptop, a tablet, or an iPad. And so theirs was a little bit different directions. They had to actually create a playlist for the book and the character, and then a one-pager that covered the book. So that gives you an idea of what those look like. And one last thing I'm going to show you here. My students did an All About Me, and this was an option to kind of break up that beginning of the year where you're always going, introduce yourself, say something about yourself. Well, my students went in and they created collections, and their collection about themselves had a couple of different parameters that they had to include. They had to include a GIF that represented them, and they had to explain why. The background had to be their favorite color, and then they had to create a graphic using Adobe Creative Cloud, and it had to be a quote of 6 words that represented them. They had to tell us about their favorite food and create a picture that went with it, or include a picture, and then 5 facts about themselves. And then they presented it in front of the class. And so it was just a little bit different way of doing that beginning of the year opening thing. And so it gave it a little bit more interactiveness to other students, where normally, they'll say, hi, my name is, and they give one thing about them. And this way it gave them a true chance to really interact and get to know each other. All right, Brandy, let's talk a little bit about how this transforms your teaching.
All right. So this has been transforming my teaching for years now. I want to say that it was about 2018 when I first started playing with Wakelet. So, we're talking bare minimum everything here. But I figured out ways from the very beginning how to incorporate this in my classroom, and it has just grown since then. And I have loved every single new addition to Wakelet. So I create newsletters, and that is one of my biggest things that I do. I send this to my parents each week so they know what to expect. I add content that is relevant to our teaching, and this content is actually what I use to teach. So when my students see this being popped up on the board, they know, okay, it's time for another lesson. It's time to learn, time to focus. And they will get quiet because they see this as an indicator. So I was putting videos in at the beginning to kind of explain what's happening during the week. I give our weekly goals, and then I make sure to add any relevant content, any websites that we'll be using, anything that I'm using to teach. If I use it to teach, it goes into my Wakelet. So you'll see different types of media here. I've got books, I've got videos. We do lots of movement and songs. The best way I feel like for students to learn is through movement and using every sensory factor that we can throw in there. So we do a lot of that. You'll see lots of videos here. This was the beginning of the year. Now, mind you, I don't use all of these every day, but these are the resources that I use throughout the week. So, a day is split up over a 7-hour period, and this is something that I constantly come back to. If parents ever have any questions or want to know, what can I do with my child at home? Well, here you go. It's all here. Everything that I use is here. You feel free to use it as well. I even include like a little homework section at the bottom, and parents know that they can always find this on my profile. So if they ever lose the link, it's right there for them.
And I love, as a teacher, how streamlined this is. It's just very simple. It's easy to follow. You can click through it. And as a parent, wow, I would have loved to have had this for my kids, so I would know what they were doing.
Yeah, and that one, the column layout wasn't a thing when I created that one. And this is what you're looking at right now. This is the column layout. So, it would be a little easier. No, it's okay. It would be a little easier for me to put, all of the ELA things, standards and videos and materials in one column, all of the math or science or whatever it is, as an educator, break it up, make it yours. If you want to use headers like what we've done here to kind of separate things, different columns, make it as easy and streamlined for you and your class family as you want to. The next one that I did was an alphabet word wall. This can be done for any grade level, starting pre-K all the way up to grade 12 or even collegiate if you wanted to stretch it that far. A word wall is simply words that are often used. It could be vocabulary words for the week, or just different words that, may be tricky for them to spell. Have that available on your profile so that they can come back to it whenever they want to. So for my kids, I uploaded some words that they typically use to write in kindergarten. And when they're at home and don't have access to my classroom word wall, the same words that I use there are here for them. And then the last one is a small group reading fluency practice. I like this because I'm able to upload the actual lesson that I'm teaching. And when I was hybrid, this was amazing because the kids at home were seeing the exact same things that the kids in the classroom were seeing. We could go through and practice reading, and then I could send this to the students that were at home, or even have it set up as a technology station in the classroom, reading what is there and then going through and creating a Flipgrid video to practice their reading, or, something of that nature. So my actual lesson that I used was here, the materials, and everybody had access to it.
I love how streamlined it is, and I love being able to see the other end of the spectrum in education using this, how this works with the littles. I love seeing that.
Yeah, you can definitely see a progression. There's not a lot of student interaction from the beginning, but they're being exposed to it. They're seeing the different types of media that can be used. So as you get older, you're building on those skills for each grade level. And then by the time you're up to Wendy's students' age, they're ready to rock it and start creating things of their own.
Thank you, Brandy. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this works in the secondary classroom and what it looks like on my end. I love using Wakelet so that I can facilitate learning instead of being that sage on the stage and just always talking to my students. I can set up a collection for them. I can get them started on a collection, and then I can circulate around and facilitate, troubleshoot, and help them with any kinds of questions they might have. For this particular assignment, this was a different All About Me assignment that they had. And they were creating 2 different Adobe Spark products and submitting them to Canvas. And I gave them this link, and this gave them their step-by-step. First things first, if they've never used Wakelet, it explains to them about Wakelet a little bit. If they've never used Adobe Spark before, they can click on this link, and then it gives them directions on what they're going to be doing and how they need to get me that information. Then down here, and this is a beautiful thing with Wakelet, is you can put a collection inside a collection. So when they came down here, you could see that it says there's 24 choices. When they click on it, they actually get to go into this collection, and they will see all of these different types of activities that they can choose from. And again, instead of just saying, talking about who they are or their likes or dislikes, they could choose 2 different of these 24 different types of projects to do. And that gave you a great idea of what your student was like. And then they chose one of the 2 to present. And so each one of these gives an example, and then gives the directions. It gives an example and the directions. And so they could go through and choose any 2 they wanted, and they could create a project from there. And that way, as they were working, all I had to do was just circulate around and see what they wanted and what they needed help with. And so very simple, just this collection, gave the directions, told them the apps they could use if they were using mobile, and then they could click there for their choices. So a couple other ways that I use this with my secondary students. We worked on a project called Who is the Ultimate Warrior? And so I shared this link with them. And within this link, this gave them everything that they needed to do to create this project. Now, my students chose at random. They were in groups of 3. And in that group of 3, one had to choose a random historical warrior from a deck of cards I had. One had to choose a location from a different deck of cards, and then one had to choose an ancient weapon. And so each one of those had different things they had to research. And so these were the different standards that we addressed. And then if you were a warrior, you clicked on this collection and you came into this and you could see all of the things that were required of you for your task as a warrior. And below it gave all the information, and they actually complete these in a collection. They create a Wakelet collection, and they would have to do these for each one of these bullet points. They'd have to do a project for those. And then weapons had same kind of idea and the location. And then at the end, those three in that group had to combine from the information that they learned, and then they had to give a defense on why theirs was the ultimate warrior based on their person they picked and the weapons and the location. So they had to defend that. And then the last thing I'm going to show you real quickly is this was for our Summer Bridge program, which is the name of our summer school program for ACT prep that we had. Now, when I had this set up, this was pre-pandemic, and our county didn't have a lot of ways to get kids information. But we had kids that needed to be able to do this ACT prep, and they were not able to attend during the class times that were available because of work and other obligations. And so I had to come up with a way to deliver the information to the in-person kids, as well as the kid that might not be accessing this till 10 o'clock at night after they got off work. And so, as you can see, it tells them where to start. They can click on there. It gives them a checklist of everything they need to do for that week. And then it takes them down here to the program that they use and gives them the information and step-by-step directions. In the guided work section, it gives them the passage, the directions on how they need to set it up. And then I actually included in here a YouTube video of me teaching this whole section so they know what to do. And then down here, it gives their independent work section. And so for those kids that were with me, they could simply work through this and I would be there to help them. For those kids that weren't there at that time, it gave them an opportunity to get the same information and get that done at a different time. So, all right, so we're going to head back over here now, and we have a transformation challenge for you. And we are going to actually, Brandy, if you want to explain the challenge, and then I am going to actually go, once you explain it, stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to dump the link into the chat so that Amy can get this information to you.
All right, so our transformation challenge for you is this. If you have found any ways from listening to us speak today, or if you have any ideas or past collections, ways that you currently use Wakelet in your classroom, go ahead and add that link right in here and show us how you would like to transform your classroom, how you are already transforming your classroom. If you just have an idea and haven't yet done it, feel free to add a Flipgrid video and then add your Twitter handle. As you add them, we'll start shouting you out on Twitter and giving you kudos on your really great ideas.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to come in here and make sure that I can get this link to Amy so that you guys can share that information.
And be sure to join us later in our breakout session.
Yes.
I believe Amy is going to be sharing that link as well. And we have some more really good ideas that we can share with you. It's really hard to choose just a few ways that we use this to share with you in such a short amount of time. So there are lots of other things that we do to make our classrooms interactive. So if you want to know more, feel free to join us later.
Thank you both so much. And yes, we've put that, we're going to put that link in the chat. So all of you watching there, make sure you jump into the backstage breakout session, and you'll be able to discuss all of those ideas and everything that Brandy and Wendy shared on this session as well. So you can share it, and we'll also make sure that that's sent out on Twitter as well. But thank you both so much for sharing all of those awesome ideas. They were brilliant, and there was a lot of love for them in the chat as well. Brandy, you've inspired certainly a few people to start doing newsletters. I mean, I for one have always loved seeing them, and it's something that I love sharing of yours as well. So they're so fantastic to see, and yeah, so many amazing ideas. Wendy, the Ultimate Warrior, I think that's just so creative and a really great way for students to get creative and sort of put something, a real fun project like that together. So thank you both so much. I know it's like short and snappy, but so many great ideas shared in that short amount of time. So it's been great having you both, and we really appreciate you sharing. But for everyone else, thank you so much also for joining and sharing your ideas. Please do join that backstage breakout session where you can share and get involved in that collection as well. We'll also be putting any resources just like that along with Brandy and Wendy's collection in the collection that we send you. And you'll receive that along with your certificate of attendance and your ticket there as well. So we'll pop the link in the chat as well. So you'll be able to complete that form and get your ticket and get your certificate and share that out. And of course, throughout this week, we've got a really cool competition going on. So if you're sharing certificates, if you're sharing your ideas, if you're sharing the collection and ideas that you've heard in this session, if you use the hashtag Wakelet Community Week and share that on Twitter and tag us in it, you'll be in with a chance of winning an iPad, all expense paid trip to ISTE 2023, and much more goodies and prizes as well. So please do get involved. But thank you all so much for joining, and hopefully we'll see you on the backstage breakout as well. But again, Wendy, Brandy, thank you so much. Anything to add before we jump off?
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
This was awesome. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, guys. And yeah, we'll see you all very soon. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.